Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today we are going to be discussing some major news change that has happened in the world of Call of Dragons, which is surrounding jumping, and how basically we went from not really having jumping to then having jumping, and then now jumping basically being taken away. And we're going to dive into the specifics here, and I'm going to explain to you what I now think is going to be kind of the quote-unquote new form, or what was once the previous form of jumping, and how you can really best go about utilizing that in today's age, or at least given where we are in COD's lifespan. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us up, because it helps out a lot. So, let's first and foremost read what the announcement is saying, and we'll go from there. We've recently received feedback about beginners migration items and are making some adjustments. Now, let me finish reading the line. Adjustments to improve the experience for Lords in newly open servers while keeping things fair for everyone. Here's what's changing. Now, number one, you often hear me say this, which is, what is the feedback? What kind of feedback are you hearing? Right? Are people just up in arms about beginner migration items, just jumping in general? If so, just give us a couple lines of saying, hey, here's some examples of pieces of feedback that we've heard. I mean, heck, even link to maybe a suggestion that was submitted that maybe has a lot of upvotes. I mean, any reference point would be fantastic, so it doesn't just feel as though there's this broad, vague statement that isn't really supported in any way, because that sometimes is how it feels, especially when you have changes that are being made. And literally, we've done this multiple times where we will look through not only the suggestions channel on the official Discord, but also we'll do keyword searches on the Discord, and basically no one has mentioned anything about the change that they have then announced. Now, again, maybe that's people that are reaching out to in-game support. Maybe they're reaching out to VIP support. Maybe they're DMing mods or whatever it may be on Discord. The point is that in any kind of public sphere is really what we're talking about, because that's the only community accountable opportunity that we have to look at pieces of feedback. It would just be nice for them to state something here, because without that, it just doesn't really do anything for me. However, here's what's changing. No more beginner migration items for new players starting around January 6th. That's going to be in 4 days from now. New players joining a server won't receive beginners migration items anymore. Existing beginners migration items are still usable. If you already have beginners migration items, you'll still be able to use them. The update only applies to new players joining new servers after the change. So, what do I think about this? Well, let me explain kind of two thought processes here. In Rise of Kingdoms, they have jumping. Now, in Infinity Kingdom, they don't really have they don't have beginner migration items. That's really what I should be saying, jumping items. They have those in Rock, they don't have those in Infinity Kingdom. So for me, doing jumper projects in both games, you have to adapt and think about how you will best go about utilizing and being able to plan for your jump. Now, when you have jumping in the game, the idea being is it allows for you to go into a kingdom, at least one, level up, collect as many resources, level your heroes, your commanders, gather as much material as possible for however long you'll be there, and then you go into a new kingdom, basically with a boosted account, right? And one that just is farther ahead than someone who would have just started in that brand new kingdom day one. However, this also allows what I feel for probably a really steep end here, which is for spenders, as an example, or anyone who would spend, to kind of almost get that much farther ahead, right? Because you have this opportunity where there's not necessarily a limit on spending as much as there is a limit on free-to-play for what you can achieve, right? So like an example is someone could be a jumper and they're spending, they could buy out the entire shop, right? It's not like they limit you, to my knowledge, let me be specific there, where you're only allowed to purchase, some things, right? No, from my understanding, you can purchase anything that is available to you. So it's not like they put some kind of level restriction where, you have to be beyond, which was once, keep in mind, you were able to go up to CH11, and then they nerfed that on the initial nerf, and they went down to CH7, which was in line with Rise of Kingdoms. But it's not as though they said, oh, well, you can only purchase 25% of the store when you're at CH11, right? And so because of that, you had the top end only getting farther when, at least as it pertains to jumping. So now the fact that they're basically removing this and they're going to revert back to what it once was, which is now more in line with like how Infinity Kingdom and some other kingdom builders do it, where you just don't, everyone basically just has to start in the kingdom day one in the brand new kingdom. I will say this. I am more pro no beginner migration items. Like, I like the fact that everyone has to start in the kingdom on day one. And I like it mainly a little bit more than I do with jumper opportunities or beginner migration or jumper migration or beginner migration items being in the game. And that's not to say that I am wholly against having that opportunity to do that in the game. But I do think that for me, there are more pros to this. And let me list off what I think are a couple. First and foremost, if you're going into a brand new kingdom, like let's say, what's the newest one right now? 569 looks to be the newest one, right? So if I'm going into a brand new kingdom, the idea, one, is that everyone is at the same playing field, right? Obviously with the exception of people who will start spending. But all the free-to-play players are exactly at the same level. So at this point, it's really just kind of going to end up coming down to activity and how much time do you have, how efficient are you being with maxing your account. And then two, when everyone joins at the same time, there is this feeling more so of fairness to an extent, right? Now, you could still make the argument that if you are a part of a jumper project, you're already coming in with one to however many alliances worth of players versus not doing that. But the kind of two sides, the two sub-categories to that is you're coming in with a jumper group and everyone's starting day one like everyone else. And then side two is you're coming in with a jumper group on a boosted account. Right? It's almost like kind of, I don't want to say pick your poison if you're just a new player coming in and you're wondering what's going on. As much as I almost don't want to say it because I just don't really view it that way, with obviously some asterisks here and there, right? Because it really just depends on what that jumper group and project's goals are and kind of how they plan to interact and engage with the kingdom or not. If that's going to be a positive or a negative experience for people that are not in those projects, there's always the opportunity for that to happen. And then I guess number three for me would be you coming in and everyone starting day one to a non-player. And I think this is potentially where you see some of the challenges, is that for a non-group player, for a non-jumper player, someone who's brand new that's coming in, that can be somewhat of a turnoff for people. When they start to figure, oh, well, these people are coming into this kingdom with a boosted account, it just kind of feels maybe to some of those players, and I'm not saying that this is an overwhelming amount, but for some people, because I've seen this happen in Rock and other kingdom builders that I played where people do jumpers, whether they're able to get a head start or not, is it can feel demotivating. It can feel like, oh, these people are so much farther ahead. There's really no way for me to kind of keep up. Even though in the grand scheme of things, everyone is kind of working towards the kingdom together. Even though, yes, there is this kind of individualistic approach early on in a kingdom where it can be alliance versus alliance, players versus players, even though really it should be everyone kind of coming together for the greater good of the kingdom and doing things that are going to allow for your kingdom to be in the best position to participate and compete in KVK. There are a lot of steps in the beginning from day one to get to that point. And some kingdoms can do it faster. Some kingdoms might take a little bit longer to kind of get to that universal ideology of what is the most important thing to really prioritize. And should I be going out and roguing and attacking anyone and everyone? And should we immediately turn our kingdom within the first week or two into a one alliance kingdom? There's a lot of different lines of thought. But for me, like I said, those are just some of my points on why I do think having it where everyone joins from day one. And let me say one of the other things too as well. This is, I guess, would be point 4, is when everyone joins from day one, you don't have limitations on how many beginner migration items can be used to get into a new kingdom. So you may recall that they put a limit on this, on the amount of quote-unquote jumpers that could migrate into a new kingdom via using their beginner migration item. So maybe it's 300, maybe it's 400, maybe it's 100, whatever number it is. There is a limit on it. And once that limit is reached, then the only way to get into the kingdom is just by starting a brand new fresh account day one. The challenge with this is it can impact some of the jumper projects, and it's not necessarily really for like the kingdom as a whole, but it's just if you're running a project, you basically have to tell people, right, especially if you have a big project, right, if you're just like 1 or 2 alliances worth of players, it's probably not really that impactful. But if you got, maybe 2, 3, 400 plus players in there that are interested in jumping, how do you discern who is eligible to use a beginner migration item when they're going? And the other challenge is that what happens if nobody really cares and they're just going to use it anyways, and then you have some people that have spent money on their jumpers and now they're not able to use their jumper to get into your kingdom, right? The kingdom that you're all going to. Now, of course, sure, they could go to the kingdom before, maybe go to the kingdom after, as long as the beginner migration limit hasn't been reached. But they're now missing out on being able to play with you all, right? And that could be something that they were looking forward to. So by removing this, it also, I feel, aligns things a lot more, in a lot easier of a way. It's smoother at this point, to where you don't really have those road bumps, right? It's like you've kind of paved out, or you've regraded your road, and you just don't have to worry about any speed bumps at this point. And again, that applies more to the projects, not necessarily to all the players that are in the kingdom, but I do still feel that it is a pro when we're talking about them removing it. And I would just say this, regardless of what side of the fence you fall on, if you are someone who is pro beginner migration, pro jumper migration items, or if you are pro, no, let's just have everyone start day one in the kingdom, I don't think that this overwhelmingly moves the needle in one way or not. But the thing that I feel, for me, moves more of the needle and is more of a storyline is the fact that they didn't have jumping in, and then they added it, and now they're removing it. It's like, man, just pick one, right? And the back and forth kills me. It's one of those things where I just don't understand. Are you doing it because you're maybe thinking, okay, well, this could be another revenue stream that we want to be able to access and generate some profits from that, because people will spend money on jumper accounts. And then, but now that they're changing it, does that mean that, okay, well, they don't care about some of the profit streams from that? Or is there data showing that, well, there's not really a difference, or it's better if we don't have it in because we'll generate more revenue from just brand new accounts compared to people jumping? And because the thing is like, let's say you jump and you have a bad experience as a spender, you might be less likely to spend in the long run compared to if you started day one and you didn't really have to worry about the whole jumping portion. Again, is that something that they're looking at? There's just quite a bit of unknown here. Again, we could speculate. And so anyways, for me, that is where I land on the jumper situation. I really believe that they should have stuck to what they were doing in the beginning, which is just not adding jumpers in. I just don't think that there was this overwhelming call to action on where you were just seeing so many people advocating for, oh my God, why isn't this in here? No, there was nothing like that. Were there some people? Sure. But it's not like there was thousands of people shouting from the rooftops saying, hey, we need to add this in, and it's, because it's not in, the game is being negatively impacted. No one was saying that. So I would love to hear from you. What side of the fence do you land on and why? Let me know in the comments down below. That is going to do it for me. As always, until next time, we'll catch you later.